Hello and welcome back. And that's right, today I want to make a video that a lot of you have been requesting these last few weeks. And that is, if you are a Synology user and you are someone that's either considering buying a new Synology or have been on the fence for a while about it, and you were somewhat perturbed by Synology's change in the support of third-party drives from Seagate, WD and more, moving towards their rather stricter certified list of drives in their 2025 series and above, a lot of you have been asking about, what about the rest of the status quo? What have the other options in the market got to offer me? Now, I made a video like this about a year ago when Synology's first whisperings of their newer gen solutions were coming out and people getting a little concerned. Now, this video is going to go into way more detail. It's going to be more freeform. It's going to be more me talking to you about what exactly these brands give you, but more importantly, what they don't. You really have to understand, if you're leaving the Synology brand, there are some things about Synology that are just not available elsewhere. And although you may be absolutely livid about what they're doing, about their support of third-party hard drives, it has to be said that if you move away from this brand, some of the things you may miss out on are just going to push you over the edge. Number one, their software experience is still pretty much the bee's knees above anyone else. I'm going to stop repeating myself, but long story short, if you are a Synology DSM user, some of the things that you like to use, such as a lot of the streamlined access to a lot of the feature set within DSM, the usability of DSM, the parity between the client and the mobile experience, the streamlined nature of a lot of the updates, some of the features such as active backup for business, surveillance station. Similar things are available over here, but nowhere near as refined, nowhere near as comprehensive, and in some cases are just simply not available. And the usability of DSM has been one of its championing points, and it's arguably something that Synology is leveraging heavily on their platform when users are now moving towards this rather strict verified storage platform. They're going towards this more appliance-led product they're aiming towards. So keep that in mind. But for the rest of you that want to see what the rest of the world looks like in the world of NAS, let's go. Now, normally at this point, this is where I would start talking about QNAP. And don't worry, we're going to get onto them later on. But due to the way things have changed in the market, we've really got to talk about these guys first. This is the UGREEN DXP 4800 Plus. And in the 1 year that UGREEN have been in the NAS market, at least in the West, they've actually been in the NAS market over in the East since about 2020, they have made serious moves from their early crowdfunding to the rollout of a number of their NAS solutions, and now doubling down on UGREEN, their NAS platform. It has to be said that when you are looking at about a lot of people that are saying things like Synology are dead to me, or I'm ditching this now, you see the word UGREEN coming up extraordinarily large scale, even though the other brand QNAP have been in the market for well in excess of 20 years. UGREEN's comparative immaturity in the world of NAS has seemingly been overlooked a great deal. Now, why is that? Well, number one, UGOS feels like DSM. The layout of the applications and services, the user interface, the responsiveness, the design, it looks and feels a lot like DSM in the web browser there. Has to be said that you do miss out on some features, and by some, I mean a lot. So, for example, a lot of the things like the security advisor, not there. Active backup, not there. Even simple things. There isn't an in-house Plex media server application. There is one for Jellyfin. They have a range of photo applications and AI photo applications that I would argue run better than anyone else, with a very, very multi-layered AI engine as well that does more than spotting faces. It doesn't have an in-house surveillance platform. It doesn't have write once, read many. It doesn't have active backup. But as just storage and in terms of the hardware profile, there is a reason UGREEN are doing a very good job. They're a well-known brand globally thanks to their chargers and adapters and cables and more, but moreover, the solid build of this product, featuring things like USB 4 and Thunderbolt output, SD card readers, 10 GBE across the majority of their range, a 2-bay, a 4-bay, a 6-bay and an 8-bay and a 4-bay flash system have all added up to a brand with a very robust entrance into the world of NAS. Keep in mind, however, the software is way less mature than DSM right now. They haven't been in the market long enough to have really proven themselves in terms of being a big player. For example, pen testing, participating in Pwn to Own, having that security scanner I mentioned earlier on that seems on their profile to focus more on malware and antivirus and less on ransomware, which is a big miss for me when it comes to any NAS brand. Bottom line, in terms of the price point, in terms of at least the good grounding nature of their software and their long-term plans moving forward, there is a big reason why a lot of users are looking at UGREEN. I can't make direct comparisons, at least in this video, between which one to go for, but I will say anything above the DXP 4800 Plus, anything above that, the 6-bay, the 8-bay and the Flash, are all Billy bangers for your money. What can I tell you about Synology versus QNAP that I've not already told you in 30, 40, 50 videos over the years? They are arguably Synology's biggest rival when it comes to hardware on their DiskStation series and their Plus series. QNAP in the last year to 2 years, maybe even 3, have had something of a bumpy road, however, and it needs to be acknowledged. Notwithstanding ransomware issues a few years ago, which they've seemingly got over, and again, there's a video linked in the description to the full story on that. Later on, when it came to their hardware, they kind of made a big choice. Around about 16, 18 months ago, they decided to double down on the software more than the hardware. It's their biggest criticism people gave them on QTS and QUTS, and they were not only spreading themselves very thin and seemingly not committing to a lot of the applications that they were rolling out for as much as they should, but it seemed like there were just too many SKUs and not enough team members to manage them all. Now, what's changed is there have been fewer desktop hardware releases. There's been a few racks, but the majority of the hardware stuff, this one, for example, this is their current flagship 4-bay. This came out in 2022, 2023, and we're entering summer 2025. This is a brand that was very quick to roll out new entries every 1.5 to 2 years, and now they've been sitting on this range for considerably longer than ever. But in that time, there has been countless upgrades to both the ZFS and the ext4 versions of their software, and on that, the ZFS platform, QUTS, is available right the way down to the 4-bays like this, which, because they've been in the market a long time now, are pretty affordable. We've seen the 4-bay as low as 450 to 500 Nika around the world, and for that you're getting a quad-core Celeron-powered system with PCIe upgradability, supporting third-party hard drives from Seagate and WD, something that all of the other brands, with the exception of Synology, by the way, are going to continue to do from 2025 onwards. But alongside that, a variety of hardware solutions, all of which now, with the exception of ARM-powered devices, are going to support the ZFS platform. Inline compression, inline data deduplication, inline compaction, RAID resilvering. Just so many advantages that it brings are now coming on a much more affordable level. Again, are they perfect? No. They certainly lack the polish of DSM. They've got the same range of applications and more. They've got a comparative app for pretty much everything on the Synology platform. It's just the consistency across the platform, the design consistency and the user experience never feels quite the same. And a lot of users still haven't quite forgiven them for the handling of Deadbolt a few years ago. Bottom line, if you're looking for a Taiwanese brand for your NAS and to house your data, most users are going to recommend when moving away from Synology, and if moving away from Synology, to go for a QNAP. But what about that other Taiwanese brand? if there's one brand that exemplifies the phrase, always the bridesmaid, never the bride, it's Asustor, the third Taiwanese NAS brand. These guys can sometimes never catch a break, and for some reason, despite them fairly consistently releasing hardware every single year, and although their software doesn't have the AAA feature set of a Synology or QNAP, still is consistent, stable, and pretty darn reliable, they never seem to break into the top two. They are kind of the Lib Dems of the world if you're into UK politics. And it's a real cracking shame because solutions like the Flashstor series Gen 1 and 2 are genuinely groundbreaking with 6 to 8 M2 NVMe slots and 10 GBE and even 5 GBE on their systems. The Lockerstor Gen series, the Gen 2, the Gen 3, the Gen 2 Plus, by the way, coming very soon. These are powerhouse systems supporting USB 4, 10 GBE, 5 GBE, high-end Ryzen ECC support in processors, enormous amounts of capability, huge amounts of power and bandwidth like this 4-bay, which by the way on the Gen 2 system with an Intel Celeron processor has between 2 to 6 and 8 SATA drives and 4 M.2 NVMe slots inside on a card. There's even combo cards from the brand. For what they lack in ADM, they make up for with some of the best NAS hardware in the market. And if you are squeamish about purchasing from brands in China, they, in terms of their hardware and their price point, are often unbeatable. And even when you go towards the more value series devices and the ARM processors, you know, your Marvells, your Annapurna, their DriveStor series has still got a heck of a lot of punch. And again, that's moving into a Plus series model as well. Just know that by going for their platform, although you gain the security scanning apps, you gain all the mobile and desktop clients, you gain backup tools, you gain multimedia tools, you do still lose out on things like active backup, proprietary virtualization, and some of the more SMB and higher applications that are just slopped in for the most part within the Synology platform. Again, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. And if you've been in the market to, let's be frank, save yourself a bit of bunts, chances are you've been looking at TerraMaster as well. Now, TerraMaster in the world of NAS is pretty unique. There was a time, I would say about 10 years ago, when it came to buying an affordable turnkey NAS solution. Turnkey, by the way, means a system that arrives with hardware and software all inside. You turn the bugger on and you're good to go. About 10 years ago, they were very unique insofar as they were a Chinese brand that were providing a full hardware and complementary and proprietary software solution. Now, fast forward to 2025, there are a few other brands that do it. But what sets them apart is, unlike some of the Chinese brands I've talked about on the channel that have their own software, theirs has developed rapidly more than anyone else. Whenever I talk about Synology, DSM and QNAP, QTS and even Asustor ADM, the majority of the features available on those platforms are available on TerraMaster. Do you want to hear the weirdest thing? Active backup on DSM? TerraMaster's the only brand that seems to have their own version of it. How weird is that? But they do. It's not as polished, it's not as smooth, and the client apps, some of which are still in beta, but their applications for backing up are kind of ahead of a lot of the other brands out there. Not Synology, but they're holding their own. Their apps and services for AI with facial recognition, object recognition, and the integration of that towards other apps and services. Support of write once, read many. Support of a security scanner. Isolation mode, which still to date, they're the only brand that have got it. They integrated air gapping into pretty much all of their software systems before everyone else did. Now, is it foolproof? No, they were hit by deadbolt as well, let's not forget. But from their 8-bay, almost pocket-sized 10 gig NAS solution to the beastly Pro and Max systems, TerraMaster and TOS have come a long bloody way. And in a world where we look at Taiwanese NAS brands that dominate the top 3 places, TerraMaster have persisted on a better price point than everyone, but still nonetheless rolled out in TOS 6 a pretty decent software platform. It's arguably the least stable of all the ones I've talked about because it's trying to do so much. But for points in innovation and points in capability, you gotta give them that. Next up, what about OS-free NAS hardware? You must have noticed in the last few years that the affordability of NAS solutions, be they completely build your own from the ground up or ready-made NAS targeted solutions that don't have software included, that you must have noticed the price of these is incredibly appealing, and particularly when you're a user that is considering leaving the Synology brands, not just for that hard drive business, but on top of that, because the hardware standard of Synology solutions is considerably lower than other devices in the market, it is arguable that this can be a huge draw. Now, we will talk about UnRAID and TrueNAS later in the video, but at least for now, we've got to talk about this hardware independent of that, because there's a lot of brands out there. Now, although there are absolutely loads, I would recommend when it comes to looking at DIY of an OS ready built solution to look at the following brands. Number one, I would recommend Aoostar. Aoostar have a nice series of devices such as the recent WTR Max, but also smaller flash solutions like the Gem series and other NAS solutions in 4-bay and bigger that provide a very good balance between price and hardware, particularly that new WTR Max, an 11-bay solution, rocking out with 10GBE twice. It's got OcuLink, it's got 5 M.2 bays and 6 hard drive bays, rocking out at an arriving $699. Use your own software is pretty impressive. Another one would be MinisForum, who are starting to dip their toe into the world of NAS with their N5 Pro, which might arrive with their own proprietary software, but you can still use your own if you choose. And that solution is beefy in the extreme, but we're still waiting at the time of recording for the exact price point. Another brand, CWWK. These guys make pretty much all of the MITX, MATX custom DIY NAS motherboards that you see on the likes of AliExpress and Alibaba that range from very affordable Alder Lake and Twin Lake Mobos as little as $100 up to nightmare behemoth motherboards with dual 10GBE, 20 lanes, equipped CPUs, and a huge amount of scalability to build your NAS around the likes of a Johnsbow case. You've got other brands like GMK Tech that produce value series DIY NAS solutions, Mayunda, who have started rocking out some new flash solutions, but really when it comes to DIY NAS out the gate, those are the brands that I talk about the most. And for custom builds, CWWK is still kind of the innovators of the NAS field right now. One brand with a surprisingly low amount of coverage in the world of NAS, I would argue, in people's knowledge base, is IceWhale, but they're more commonly known for their Zima series of devices. Devices like the Zima board and the Zima Cube. Now, these are devices that arrive with the CasaOS and ZimaOS that, although is pretty lean in terms of its apps and services, is one of the lowest resource consuming NAS applications I've ever used, operating systems I should say. It has containerization, it has RAID functionality, it has file sharing, a file manager built in, and its footprint on the system with its BTRFS platform is very low indeed, leaving a lot of your hardware to just get the job done. However, keep in mind that the majority of apps and services that you're going to use on an IceWhale device are going to be containerized third-party apps, thanks to the likes of Portainer, the likes of Docker and more that have really helped the evolution of one-click installs from your more popular applications there. They are well built, they are well priced, and in the case of the Zima Cube Pro, significantly hardware rich with an Intel i5 processor, 6 bays of storage, M.2 NVMe slots coming out the wazoo, and direct USB connectivity, USB 4 connectivity point to point with your Mac or Windows system there. The likes of the Zima board I've talked about, a incredibly versatile single board server with a PCIe output, 2.5 GBE twice, SATA inputs there, USB, an Intel N150 CPU inside, and up to 16 gig of memory. All very affordable and a very lightweight, low impact system in terms of power consumption, in terms of noise, and in terms of your wallet. A lot of you who have been learning more and more about the world of NAS and storage and stretching your tech muscles over the years of owning Synology have heard a lot about two particular DIY NAS software brands, and this is one of them. We'll talk about the other one in a moment. This is where I want to talk about UnRAID. UnRAID can be intimidating. It's not quite as intimidating as the other one, but it still has its moments. It's largely containerized when it comes to utilizing third-party applications and services. It relies quite heavily on that, although the base level platform that is UnRAID in version 7 at least has a lot of the ground features and abilities hard baked into it there. Its support of ZFS in recent years, its customization of the graphical user interface are all good, although keep in mind there is very little in terms of proprietary client tools. Also, unlike a paid platform from the likes of Synology or pretty much everyone I've talked to up to this point, UnRAID will give you virtually no support in terms of your hardware. What support there is in a more formal setting does require hiring paid consultancy via UnRAID's range of recommended technicians. Again, look out for Ed Rawlings on there from Space Invader 1. But it should be said that UnRAID is one of the most customizable, flexible DIY NAS solutions in the market, but it's also not free. Keep in mind you get 30 days trial, and then from that you can get licenses based on months, years, or lifetime there. Ultimately, UnRAID, although very intimidating, if you've got the time to utilize it, you will find very rewarding indeed. It also benefits from being one of the only NAS brands that runs initially off a USB drive. You pop in a USB that's got your install, it's got your boot, and then it loads it into the memory. So it has the lowest impact on system resources when it is running than any other NAS brand I've talked about there. So it means you can run it on incredibly modest systems. In recent years, we've seen them partner with brands like LinkPlus to allow them to actually produce hardware with an UnRAID license inside. This allows you to not even get your hands dirty and build your own. Things like this, which is a 2x SATA SSD and 4x M.2 NVMe 10 gig equipped Intel powered system there. There's a 4-bay solution that has a couple of M.2s and 2.5 GBE, and again includes the UnRAID license there. So UnRAID is stretching its muscles outside of the software only field, but it would be longer than this video to try to explain to you the core benefits of UnRAID to an existing Synology NAS unit in a way that won't all sound like downsides. The lack of customized, kind of easy user-friendly interface, UnRAID will look terrifying by comparison. A lot of the features that you can get on this are available. As mentioned, require one-click containerized installations, which will require more research. Again, head over to Ed Rawlings at Space Invader 1 for a much deeper analysis of these things. Oh, it's time. Let's talk about TrueNAS. For the sake of ease, we're just going to talk about TrueNAS Scale, by the way, but pretty much everything I'm going to say applies to both of them. But I'll say right now, if you are someone that in recent years, or even months, or even days, have been considering migrating away from Synology for your data, guaranteed someone who knows a lot about tech has said to you, just get TrueNAS. It's free, it's powerful AF, and you can utilize it on not just your day one hardware, but migration year upon year, system to system to system. It is scalable, expandable, and has a long-term deployment more than anyone else. It sounds fantastic, right? What could be the downside? It is still by far the most complicated NAS platform in the market. And anyone that says otherwise in the comments has been using it for years or already knows what they are doing. a lot of the words, data sets, devs, a lot of the layout of the data, the way jails work, it all adds to an incredibly robust, performance-rich environment, but no one can convince me otherwise that it's not the most complicated platform in the market. There are whole channels dedicated to this, and one of the biggest hurdles talking about TrueNAS is trying to take such a complicated subject and make it chewable and user-friendly. I don't think anyone has managed to do that yet. What's the point I'm making? It might be free, but it will cost you in time to learn. And as long as you're prepared to put the hours in, you are going to have a phenomenal time with TrueNAS. You will have to buy your own hardware. They do supply pre-made solutions. IX Systems have actually got ready-made solutions that arrive with standard warranties, guarantee and support. And there's even an enterprise platform that arrives with a bunch of extras that you can use to facilitate your experience with TrueNAS. But you're, on the whole, always going to be relying on community support and a non-paid commercial platform for most users. And that's something, alongside applications and clients and in-house tools, that you're going to miss out on when you move away from the Synology platform. There is a reason TrueNAS still continues to be the de facto DIY NAS software solution, but just know what you're getting yourself into there. Even now, this is a Johnsbow case I've got here on the table. The reason I've got this on the table is because this is an 8-bay tower solution, but if I had a TrueNAS install from 20 years ago, I could just migrate it over to this with ease. And that is an ease of migration that is not as streamlined within the Synology platform. All of the brands I've talked about today support a myriad of third-party hard drives and SSDs, but in the case of TrueNAS, they are the ones that are the most open-ended of any other brand I've talked about. But just remember, you pay in time less than you do in money. Now, I know there are going to be those out there that have said I've missed some brands out. Zspace, Unifi Drive, Zetlab, all of these and more are brands I've not talked about. And the only reason they've not made the cut in this video is I've wanted to target very specifically the most broadly available NAS solutions that I think users potentially migrating away from Synology should consider. If you've bought a Synology NAS, it's because you bought into the stability, you bought into a well-regarded brand, and I think you need to understand what you potentially might be walking away from. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of what the brand has been doing in terms of its support of hard drives, some of the apps and services that have had their wings clipped a little bit there, and just what exactly Active Protect and the BP series is going to mean in the long run with regards to the likes of DSM and the likes of Active Backup for Business. But I will say that the Synology platform is still unrivaled on its software, unrivaled in its usability for most users, and let's not overlook the fact that yes, the hardware is comparably weak to quite a large degree compared to everyone else that I've discussed, but their 2 bays, their 4 bays, their 6 bays, their 8 bays have somehow maintained the same price every year for 15 to close to 20 years. And a lot of the time, it's for the software, not the hardware. Whether you want to stay with Synology or not really is your call, but I think it's super important that you understand that migrating away from it will have hurdles, will have challenges. And if you must migrate, do so with them running parallel and either turn this device into an SMB backup or have them running simultaneously and think about what you're going to miss out on. I know I'm being repetitious, I'm sorry, but they're not built the same. None of the brands I've talked about today are the same. They've all got their quirks, they've all got their pros, they've all got their cons. I know this has been a long video, and I really hope you found it helpful. Link below, there's a link to an article which goes into a lot of detail about this, alongside links to purchase any one of the many solutions I've talked about today. If you found this video helpful, and if you were to go to those shops anyway, make sure those two things are true. Please use those links. It results in a small commission coming to NASCompares. It's just me and Eddie here doing what we do, and we really thank you. Have yourselves a fantastic week.